Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, folks. Welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is the McDermott Report. We're live every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tonight, an embarrassing outage for Netflix on the heels of a 60% price increase makes everybody mad all over again. Also, Rupert Murdoch headed for Parliament. That should be a doozy. Joining me, as she often does, is the senior political writer for the Lynchburg Times, Ms. Emily Williams. Emily, welcome.
Hi, Dan.
All right, that's her. She's evolving her intro. All right, first thing, you before the show we were discussing you are an avid Netflix fan. That's a tongue twister. My experience was I noticed it was out, and so I looked online. I looked at their blog. I looked at their technical blog. I looked at their Facebook page. I looked at their Twitter account. Nothing in any of those places. And then I went online to the Google, and I inspected, I checked, and there's a thing like down now or something, and it suggested that it had been out for a few hours. Then I tried my television, my Vizio, which is behind me, and it has one of those cool Netflix apps built into it, and that wasn't working. So then I went to Netflix, and I figured, well, maybe the app needs to be redone because I've had a couple problems with the TV. And so I tried to log in to Netflix. It said my password wasn't correct. So I went to email me the link for the new password, put the new password in, and that didn't work either. So anyway, I was like, what's going on? Because there was no communication. So I tried to call them, and I got a busy signal. I called like 10 times. Got slightly more frustrated each time. And then I finally got through, all excited, and it said, we're experiencing unusual call volume. Please call back later. So then I realized, okay, so, obviously something's up. So that was my Netflix experience. And this went on until I think after midnight last night. So I started, I think Huffington Post said 5 o'clock. Just to show you, I did a story on the Lynchburg Times, and I'm trying to remember what I said, but it was, the first thing was, I'll go ahead and pull it up here. Netflix. It appears I've crashed my. Okay, that's not good. Anyway, I said something like their ratings with something like from AAA to junk, as Moody's would put it, and I posted the story, and I'm waiting for my screen to refresh, and then my phone lit up with from Google News saying they just picked up the story, and then when it was done refreshing, I went to stats just to see how many hits we had before this story, right? Already the story had 167 hits, like in 2 minutes or something. And then I refreshed it again, and it was like 400. So apparently everyone was dying for information. Now, the background to this, I think on the 12th of July, Netflix increased their rates and separated their programs. It used to be you could pay as little as $7.99 for streaming unlimited, and then add $2 for that for one DVD per mail. And then I have the 2 DVDs out at one time, so I think I was paying $14 or $15, and that's going to go up to $20. Frankly, I think adding $2 to mail DVDs was a money loser, and I don't mind paying $20. I think you said the same thing. I do have a problem when you have thousands of people out, and I checked their Facebook page. Your last post had 75,000 hits or comments on it, and then it was going up a couple of hundred a minute. And while I was checking it went up to 76,000, 77, or whatever it was. And if you do have an outage, people understand, but you shouldn't make them sit there and try to dial the phone or whatever. Why can't they? I'm sure, I don't know how many technical people they have. I'm sure one of them knows how to operate their Twitter page and could put out a little note saying, oops, we're having some technical issues affecting parts of the country. Please bear with us. Our top people are on it, blah, blah, blah. But they did nothing. And I noticed on Facebook, someone had put the name, office, and cell phone number of the vice president of communications for Netflix. So naturally, I called and got no answer. And then I texted the number. And on the thing, it said, here's a cell phone number. He has texting, right? I mean, this is an exasperated Netflix user. And so I texted him, and I said, hey, what's the deal with the outage? Any comment? Dan McDermott, Lynchburg Times. So the vice president, and I got his voicemail twice, so I know it was him. He texted me back and said, no text, email. and then gave me his email. So he told me not to text him, so I didn't, And then so I emailed him, and I waited, and I have yet to get a response. I guess he's hiding in his cubicle or his fancy desk, or is too arrogant to care what one of his customers or a news reporter thinks, or he's so busy dealing with the fallout from this. But so I waited and waited, and then I posted the story, and then I texted him back and said, "Hey, waiting on a response from my email. I've gotten nothing." So they just made everybody mad again. For years and years, they've cultivated this wonderful reputation as this great company to work for and to have to purchase services from. And then here we have it. What are your thoughts, Emily?
Well, they obviously had a problem with communication. I think that was their one big fault. From the sounds of it and the fact that he hasn't responded to your email yet, they may not know what happened, what actually caused it, which might be why the communication is still so bad. I agree with you received a comment from a user on Facebook that said that it might be a hack. And that sounds like the most probable cause to me, especially after how outraged people were with the price increase. And I've been a Netflix user for a number of years now, and I actually didn't experience an outage last night. I had it, we're packing and I'm moving, so I had it on for most of the night, and it never once went out on me. So they're mentioning if you were logged in, then there wasn't a problem. So obviously it didn't affect everyone. But I think that the price increase is reasonable. I think my services from Netflix, since I started using it, they've really increased their library and they've increased what they offer. So I really don't mind paying. For me, it's an extra $5 a month, I guess, because we do the one DVD out at a time. And I really don't mind it. I mean, it used to be that you could watch one or two shows at a time, download them to your computer, and now with the amount of devices you can watch Netflix on, it's almost like a completely different service they've added on. So, this is their first really big slip up, and I hope that people don't, jump on them too hard for it. I mean, it's obvious they need better communication, but it might be that they've not had to communicate this quickly about a problem before, because I really can't remember a time that Netflix has gone down in the past. So this might just be a new thing for them, and hopefully they'll be able to do better in the future.
We can hope. I think a lot of the issue wasn't so much the price increase. It was they announced it in a blog talking about what a great deal they are, and it was if you're going to raise your prices, just raise your prices, because it was. I mean, it's still cheap, right? I mean, you can. It's basically it's like cable TV. Okay, it's not all the A-list movies and everything, but there's certainly enough to keep anyone occupied. But it's still relatively cheap. It was cheap then. It's cheap now. You can still, what is it, $10 now for unlimited streaming? I think $9.95 is it? I don't remember.
All I know is it's 15 for unlimited streaming and one physical DVD out at a time.
Okay, so it's still it's still cheap. I think it was not flippant, but the blog post acting like, oh, this is such great news, this is so exciting, and it was a 60% price increase. And then the lack of communication from these guys. He still hasn't emailed me. It's been 24 hours, right? So, they deserve what they get. I think that they need to readdress their public relations, because and you said not everyone was affected, and that's true, but enough were affected to have thousands and thousands of people commenting and freaking out. And I think it's exactly how not to operate a public relations machine. So there. But anyway, we still like Netflix. We're still customers, but I'll beat up on them when they need it, because that's what we do on the McDermott Report. Just kidding. Not really. Okay, next up, Rupert Murdoch headed for Parliament. I think this will be a big love fest, right, Emily?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, so James Murdoch and Rupert Murdoch and I guess Rebecca Brooks, who's out of jail. This whole thing is just now the police chief, the head of Scotland Yard has resigned, saying he did nothing wrong, and the head of the counterterrorism unit, who did nothing wrong, has resigned. Why would you, Emily, under what circumstances, now I'm not casting guilt on anyone, but could you tell me the circumstances under which you would immediately resign your position if you had done nothing wrong?
I might do it if I was feeling pressure, if I was afraid, if I was, I think that there's a lot of really strong people involved in this, so who knows what's going on behind the scenes there? Who knows how much corruption has, entered the police force or what have you, and this whole thing has just gotten so messy, and it really is just affecting, everything from 9/11 victims to now the Wall Street Journal, of course, is getting pulled into it, and it's messy.
I agree. What do you think? You've got a combination of people who hate them. They're the targets of their over the years, scandal hunting, and their partisanship, because they do show. They're clearly partisan. So you've got a combination of that mixed with, I think someone on the BBC referred to it as politicians predisposed to like them, although that's currently unpopular. And the mix of these two folks, you've seen Prime Minister's Question Time. This is not, a friendly group when they don't agree with you. This should be pretty compelling television. We've never seen Rupert Murdoch, James Murdoch, grilled like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be really interesting to watch. And I'm also interested to see how much actual, substantial truth and, real facts come out of this, because as it stands right now, it's just, the whole thing is just really murky, and, it'd be nice to see the true story to come out, I guess.
Yeah, that's what everyone's trying to find out. This is, it's interesting, I got to say, to see this thing. It still hasn't hit over here. They're trying, they're going to investigate, and then they've got this thing. There was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal which is generating a lot of criticism, and I want to read two parts of this. And you read this, right? Before I highlight what I think, I heard a lot of criticism before I saw the editorial. So my view was, okay, they're getting beat up over this, but I wanted to see for myself what I thought, so I read it. And there's a link. If you go to the first of all, you're welcome to call the show, and you can listen, or you can press 1 to talk with us, and we'd love to have you join in. The number is 818-688-6625. And anytime, if you're in the car or whatever, you just want to listen, just call that number and just listen. Then if you want to join us, you can press 1 and you'll go into the queue. But you're welcome to just call it and listen and not participate if you wish. Anyway, the web address for my profile on Google+, which has links to all the stories that we're talking about today, is gplus.to for Google Plus 2, gplus.to/McDermott. And that will take you to the links that we're discussing. So I'm going to go here. I'm actually using my own page. Looking at this first, again, I just wanted to give you the background on this. What are your thoughts before I say anything? What do you think about this editorial? Does it seem reasonable from them, or does it seem outrageous to you?
Well, I guess this editorial has to be put into context. The Wall Street Journal was coming under fire before this came out for their handling of the News of the World situation. They actually were covering it for a newspaper a very underhanded kind of way. They put a line on the front page, but then the actual article and coverage of it was put into the second section, I believe, in a way that, the most a newspaper can try to cover something up while still covering it, I guess. When the Wall Street Journal, what they needed to do is be really upfront about it and really just, cover it even though it's a part of themselves. It just made it even more important for them to be right on top of everything that was happening. So, of course, then this editorial came out, and the ties to Rupert Murdoch, and before the editorial, there was an interview with Murdoch that came out. I think it was Friday. That was just very it was just it read like a soapbox. They let him say exactly what he wanted to say. There weren't a lot of tough questions in it, and then came the editorial. And I think that this is really just speaking to where the power lies at the Wall Street Journal right now, and it's really unfortunate that they've come down on the wrong side of this.
Yeah, I agree. I gotta, in their defense. First, I'll defend them, and then I will. I'm trying to tweet to get some more folks to join us here as I talk. First, I'll defend them, and then I'll kind of not defend them. First of all, no organization could be. So I don't know. Someone said, how many in-depth investigations about CNN have you seen Wolf Blitzer do? How many times has Bill O'Reilly done an investigation on Fox News? You don't. It's not fair for them. This is a big. This is a big criticism of the FAA, because they are responsible for every time a plane crashes. They're responsible for investigating the crash, but they're also responsible for promoting the airline industry. So, it's not fair for me to investigate myself or to say realistically, let's see if this McDermott report is fair and if Emily's doing a good job, with Dan. So. Police departments are a good example. In Virginia, I filed a complaint once against the Front Royal Police Department about an officer who pulled me over. I wasn't charged with anything, but his behavior was ridiculous. And I was basically pulled over. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was pulled over for driving late at night, and which isn't a crime. So I filed a complaint. I was just curious how it would work. And of course, we did nothing wrong. And there's no oversight. There's no public disclosure even that a complaint, the number of complaints filed, even in the aggregate where you don't name any names, nothing can be released. It's all personnel matters. So you could have police officers out there committing crimes, and if someone were predisposed to cover that up within the department, nobody would know about it. I'm not suggesting that that's occurring, although in this particular case, the guy was wrong and violated my civil rights, but he got away with it, and it wasn't worth pursuing. Life goes on. And in general, I have many friends in the Front Royal Police Department who are great guys, great cops. And so, I don't want to make a big stink about it, but you can't expect an organization to investigate itself. But this happens all the time. So,
can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think that there's one big problem with that argument, and that's that Wall Street Journal isn't being accused of hacking people's phones. This was their opportunity to take a really hard stance and say editorially, we are separate from the news of the world. We can be independent editorially from what's going on with News Corp, and we can talk about what is happening at News of the World, and we can talk about phone hacking and distance ourselves from it. And by posting this editorial and by covering it the way they did, they really just showed that they weren't independent. And when Murdoch purchased the Wall Street Journal, that was one of the insurances that he gave to their board, is that he was going to let them maintain their editorial independence. And it just shows that that independence is gone, essentially. I mean, you can say as much as you want that they can't criticize themselves, but it wouldn't have to appear like they're criticizing themselves. And another good example of a media organization doing this properly is when Juan Williams got fired from NPR. NPR covered it intensely. They were all over it. All of their call-in shows were asking listeners what they thought of what happened, and they really covered everything that went on. And the Wall Street Journal just did the opposite, and they had the opportunity and more distance from it than NPR did. So, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, okay. You never miss an opportunity to praise NPR. I hear you. Yeah.
Example though of
Yeah. That's fair.
Covering itself.
They are involved though. Their publisher was a former News of the World editor, right? And he just resigned. So they're
That's
not
true.
uninvolved, and the editorial was largely praising him. Here's what I have a problem with here. The last couple paragraphs here. They're attacking the attackers, okay? But all of the attacking going on by the Guardian and other quote unquote left-leaning publications, all of that pales in comparison to the kind of things that News of the World did. So you sort of reap what you sow. And here we go. Here's an example. The prize, this is from a Wall Street Journal op-ed, and if you want to read this, you can, again, go to the show notes from today, July 18th, gplus.to/McDermott, and I've got a link in there. The prize for righteous hindsight goes to the online publication ProPublica for recording the well-fed regrets of the Bancroft family that sold Dow Jones to News Corp at a 67% market premium in 2007. The Bancrofts were admirable owners in many ways, but at the end of their ownership, their appetite for dividends meant that little cash remained to invest in journalism. We shudder to think what the Journal would look like today without the sale to News Corp. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. Obviously, they needed to sell it, right? They sold it. I mean, every news, I own 3 newspapers. Trust me, we're not all rolling in the dough. And okay, so then in braying for politicians to take down Mr. Murdoch and News Corporation, our media colleagues might also stop to ask about possible precedents. The political mob has been quick to call for a criminal probe into whether News Corporation executives violated the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act with payments to British security or government officials in return for information used in news stories. This sentence kills me. Attorney General Eric Holder quickly obliged last week without so much as a fare thee well to the First Amendment. That's outrageous to say that, yeah, to say it's a political mob calling for a probe into whether they broke the law. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. The foreign bribery law has historically been enforced against companies attempting to obtain or retain government business. But U.S. officials have been attempting to extend their enforcement to include any payments that have nothing to do with foreign government procurement. This includes a case against a company that paid Haitian customs officials to let its goods pass through its notoriously inefficient docks, and the drug company Shearing Plough for contributions to a charitable foundation in Poland. Applying this standard to British tabloids could turn payments made as part of a traditional news gathering into criminal acts. The Wall Street Journal doesn't pay sources for information, but the practice is common elsewhere in the press, including in the U.S. The last time the liberal press demanded a media prosecutor, it was to probe the late conservative columnist Robert Novak in pursuit of White House aide Scooter Libby, but the effect soon engulfed a reporter for the New York Times, which had led the posse to hang Novak and his sources. Do our media brethren really want to invite Congress and the prosecutors to regulate how journalists gather the news? This is BS. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I think that saying that, people shouldn't call for News of the World to get prosecuted because it would clean up the rest of the press is a really bad argument. No one should be paying for sources, and that's a huge problem with the way, a lot of our media outlets report on Washington is, they have these, on deep background sources that no one really knows who they are, and it's caused problems in reporting in the past. And we can all think of a few, and it just, they really messed up with these last few graphs, and I'm not sure who decided it was a good idea for the paper to print this. By running this, they are essentially saying, bad things happen, and we need to just let it happen, which is a horrible way to run a newspaper.
I don't think we should investigate police corruption because that might thwart folks from wanting to be police officers. Give me a break, This is nonsensical. So we agree the Wall Street Journal editorial was out of line at best. You can expect them to be defensive when their company's under attack. I would expect nothing less. But this is just blatant arrogance, and how dare they? How they should just let it go, or how dare they? That's the whole point of the media and adversarial relationship. A watchdog. That's their job. Otherwise, who's going to hold these politicians and potentially corrupt cops to account, if not the press? So yeah. Anyway. And in the same way
that the press holds, politicians and other public officials to in account, it's the government's job and the people's job to hold the press in account. We can't just go all willy-nilly, secretly recording anything we want. There's laws against that. And, if you don't uphold those laws, then, you know, every you know, everything that the press is worth kind of goes away. We really need to police ourselves and let others police us. And arguing that shouldn't happen is just, it's a dumb move, and it's bad journalism.
Yeah, the two sentences here that really grabbed me. Attorney General Eric referring to investigating the potential abuses, the violations of the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act with payments to British security or government officials. In other words, News Corporation, which I believe is a U.S. company, if that corporation's entities were bribing foreign government officials, which is potentially what's going on, that Eric Holder should not have pursued that because he should defer to the First Amendment. In other words, it's okay. So what they're saying is it's okay to bribe government officials in return for information if you're a news organization. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And then this last sentence, do our media brethren really want to invite Congress and prosecutors to regulate how journalists gather the news? I mean, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. So anyway, anything else on that?
No. Other than
right.
Hopefully it gets less messy by the time it goes away.
Do you have a prediction? Do you have a prediction on Prime Minister David Cameron, whether he's going to survive this? Looks like he is so far.
Yeah, I think he might. I think he jumped on investigating it early enough that, you know, whatever. I mean, unless there's something else that we don't know about, which is quite possible, you know. I think I'm constantly amazed at different things that get pulled into the story. So
I'm hearing about a quid. I'm hearing about a quid pro quo. I don't know if this is true, but I think this was from the BBC, saying that the whole scandal was this guy who was his press PR person, press spokesman, whatever. The way it went down is Rebecca Brooks. Again, this is what I heard. I don't know if this is accurate, but this is from the BBC. Rebecca Brooks, who was the head of either News International or editor of the News of the World at the time, perhaps, that she liked Cameron and said, you know, we'll get the Murdochs on board, which means, you know, write favorable coverage, I assume, of Cameron, endorsements, that kind of thing. And the payback was that they would hire this former editor as his PR guy, and that's how he got the gig working for David Cameron. So, I mean, no one is suggesting that David Cameron would, you know, knew about this phone hacking stuff. For all we know, he may have been a victim of it, but that's a whole thing. So, and then one thing I noticed, I wanted to just mention that Jeff Jarvis, who is he's sort of a tech guy now. He's an author. He's the author of What Would Google Do and a new book called Private Parts. But his Twitter feed, I'm trying to get to it, but Twitter is experiencing issues right now. So I guess we'll have to hold off on that. But it was hysterical as he was dealing with this. I need to get him on at some point. Okay, let's talk about books. Let's talk about Borders. We learned today is going to close and liquidate. Do you have any affinity for Borders bookstores? What do you think, Emily? Is this a bad move or just out with the old, in with the new? Go Amazon.
Well, you know, I've been using Amazon for a while now over stores like Borders. I still have an affinity for small bookstores, which I understand are having an even tougher time of it. But there's something really charming about going into a store that's just really old and, you know, stacked to the ceiling with books and, you know, kind of out of order and everything, and just finding something in it. But as far as the big chains go, it's not all that surprising. You know, I'm excited. I'm excited about the renting the textbooks, though. You said we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a Borders in Winchester, Virginia, and it has, I guess, I forget what the name of the coffee shop they have. I think it's their own thing. It's not like a Starbucks or something, but Joe Muggs coffee maybe. And I remember when it came, it was in an old Walmart. They split it up into two. Walmart built a bigger Walmart, and they split it up into a Kohl's on one side, and then this Books A Million, that's a Books A Million, and then the Borders was across the way. But they're nice bookstores, but it still boils down the business model, because books are relatively cheap to ship, and Amazon just charges less. Books have this horrendous. In order to have a bookstore, you have to have a large selection, and they don't all move. People go in and buy the new Harry Potter book or the new John Grisham book, but they don't all move. But you've got to have this huge volume. So you got all the $1 million or more sitting on the shelves, and then you're moving your stuff, and then you sell your bookmarks and your gift cards and your coffee shop and all this stuff. But it's just so expensive. Now there is a charm to these little mom and pop bookstores, and there's nothing better than if you want something for your wife or girlfriend or your kid, and you go into a bookstore, maybe a used bookstore, and like you said, it's disheveled. It's got a charm, maybe a musty smell to it, and there's some old woman or old man there, and they, I've got just a thing, and they dig around and find it, and you discovered a treasure, for $8 or whatever. So that's exciting, and that's romantic, and those are the kind of things that I don't mind patronizing. I want to encourage that. But Borders or Books A Million or Barnes & Noble, to me, or Walmart or Amazon, they're not local businesses. They're all corporate, and they're all owned by shareholders in some big corporation somewhere. So it doesn't matter to me. I have no loyalty to one over the other. So if I can go to Amazon, if I'm not in a hurry, but it just makes, it's frustrating. I mean, to go in there and everything's retail list price plus the sales tax you have to pay, which you should pay as use tax to Amazon anyway. So that's not really a thing, but most people don't. But yeah, it's just, I don't have any real, if Amazon gets it or somebody else gets it. Now, what this does do is there are 10,000 plus people who work for Borders, and they'll all be out of a job in due course. And at the same time, I think Cisco announced today 11,500 layoffs, of which I think 6,500 or something are in the U.S., and a couple thousand of those are early retirements. But we're talking 15, 16, just in two news stories just today, we're talking 16,000 jobs lost. And I think last month the figures came out, or the last figures to come out, I think for May, I guess, or I think it was May, maybe June, but it was 18,000 total jobs created. So this is about that many jobs lost in just two news stories, not to account for everything else. So this will not help the employment numbers. That 9.2 is looking on shaky ground.
Yeah, it's going to be brutal for jobs, and I think everyone, as far as jobs is concerned, is just waiting for companies to feel stable enough to start adding positions. We just haven't seen those big hirings like everyone wants to see. So, fingers crossed that other people are going to be able to pick up. They are going to be be able to add jobs where these are left behind. But I think that's probably the one big downfall to this is the jobs. I don't think that anyone's going to miss one specific large retail store. Although I'm sure there are Borders nuts out there that are crying a little bit. But Amazon has just been able to fill the book need. If there's a book that you can't find in your tiny store, then you can get it there, or vice versa. So, I think that the in-between, the Borders, and, Barnes & Noble might be okay, because the Nook is doing all right. And I think that's probably the reason why Borders went down, because they had a ebook reader, and I can't even remember the name of it, but it's really new. And I don't think that I know anyone who has one either. They just were really late to the game in bringing it in, and that was probably their biggest downfall.
I agree. All right, so let's talk about this other book story involving a bookstore. The Amazon, good friends of Borders Bookstore, Amazon is going to rent college textbooks for the Kindle, right? And this is going to have an impact on Barnes & Noble, which, like here in Lynchburg, there's Liberty University, and they've got a bookstore. It says Liberty University Bookstore on the front, and you go in, it's a Barnes & Noble. They operate a lot of these things. You just got out of college. I remember when I was in college, There's nothing more expensive in life than college textbooks. Some of these things are just ridiculously expensive because a lot of them are frequently changed. A lot of them have a low volume compared to, like a John Grisham or Harry Potter book. And also there's just a tremendous amount of money being made in this racket. So I think this is a good thing. What are your thoughts, fairly fresh out of college, about this concept?
I think it's an excellent idea. And I just want to add in that Barnes & Noble actually announced that they were going to start, I think they're starting to rent books as well. I might be incorrect about that. But, yeah, it's a great idea. And the biggest reason it's a good idea is because Amazon has said that once the time that you rent the book expires, you save your highlighted and note sections of whatever book you had. So it's essentially like having your notes without the book. And I really think that, mostly, and it's all for price reasons, textbooks are a lot of money. And most of my education was very liberal arts, so I had a lot of small books, but I still paid a large amount of money each month, even paying used and buying off of Amazon for textbooks. And being able to rent, it's a great idea, especially in times when education has just gotten so expensive and kids really need a break wherever they can get it. And I think most importantly, this is probably going to be the make or break thing for the ebook market. If you have a whole generation of kids that are renting their textbooks on an ebook reader, then you have a whole new market of customers. It's that thing that takes it from a novelty to like something you have to have. It makes it a tool instead of being, a recreation activity. So I think that it's a great move, and whoever came up with it should be making big bucks from Amazon.
Yeah, college books, man, big money, and I remember there were a couple classes I think that's George Mason University, where one of the colleges I went to, where the teacher actually wrote his own book. One was a foreign language course, and he actually wrote his own textbook, and it was fairly ghetto looking, but it worked, and it was exercises, all the stuff about the language, and it was like a workbook, and it was bound, and it was, I don't know, $12 or something. Ridiculously cheap, and it was perfectly matched for his class, of course, because he had written it, and so that was a joy. That but I just, that's cool. Any kind of innovation like this, we'll see how that goes. I think people have been paying too much at bookstores for too long. These big chain new bookstores that come in and they put out of business all the little bookstores that had the charm and the personal touch, and you get minimum wage kids in there who once in a while someone knows something. I just don't think that there's a lot of love lost for this, and it's a shame anytime you lose a showroom, a local footprint where you can go in. I'm glad that libraries seem to be still doing well. They're adding a lot of programs. The community meeting room concept and classes and things, and now they're renting audiobooks, and I think they're renting books like this where you can actually, or not renting but loaning, where you just, it's free. And I think it's very important that libraries still function, because rich folks can do whatever they want, but a lot of folks lower income especially, or kids, it's the only way that they can get access to this sort of thing, and knowledge is power, and if you can get kids to read today, that's a terrific thing. And so we're pro books. There, I said it. So anyway, okay, we've done the Netflix thing. I beat up on them, and we've done the Murdoch thing and the Borders thing. This is an interesting story. A guy puts an ad, he's on Google Plus, and he puts an ad on Facebook, because you can't advertise a Google Plus profile on Google. It won't allow you, because your profile is actually plus.google.com/a-billion-numbers. So this guy wanted to advertise his site to get more people to add him to their circles. If you don't use Google Plus, you don't know what I'm talking about. But basically, he wanted them to sort of friend him or follow him. And so he put an ad on Facebook. Facebook not only removed the ad, but deleted his or removed his account so he can't place any ads. And then they said that he had violated the terms of service. They didn't specifically say why, but there is a term of service. You cannot advertise a competitor to Facebook. So I guess you could argue back and forth whether advertising your profile is, I don't know. I see Facebook's point, but at the same time, any chance we can beat up on Zuckerberg, let's do it. What do you think about this whole ad story?
Well, I think it definitely makes Facebook into the big bad guy, which I'm not sure that they want right now. I mean, I understand why they handled it this way, and, I think I might have as well. But we've talked before about how we think that they need more adults looking out for their interests at that company, and this definitely would have been one of those situations where, it should have been talked about, and the email that was, I think that deleting the guy's profile probably wasn't a great idea, because essentially they've just cemented the fact that he's now a Google Plus user and not a Facebook user. So I think maybe sending him an email saying, we understand you're just advertising a profile, but this is our competitor and it's against the service, like the terms, and actually using the term that it was against, because their email to him was very cryptic and didn't involve that term of service in it. I think it wasn't handled properly, and this is just going to make more people switch. And it's not like one ad on Facebook was going to, change it for Google Plus, but their reaction had more of an effect. So
I'm looking here at ZDNet, and they on the Borders story, they just said that some stores are apparently already in full mode of liquidating, and there's some great deals to be had. Emily, this could be your big chance to get a discount on a Kobo e-reader. Borders. And I love this sentence.
I read that.
Go ahead.
I read that they don't have a contingency plan for. They're Kobe, like Kobo?
Kobo.
I don't even think I'm familiar with the name at all. Yeah, I read that they don't have a contingency plan for people that own those. So if you just bought one within the last month or so, and you pretty much have a useless piece of technology on your hands.
Well, isn't it? Can't you put whatever on it? You just, aren't there sort of open source? I don't know how it works. I don't have an e-reader. I have books, and
I don't think it's as open source. They're not very open source, from what I read. That they're very device specific, for the most part. So.
Interesting. If somebody, I guess, I don't know what they're selling to this company. You ever been to one of these liquidations? Everything must go. Going out of business, liquidation. You get in there and it's like 10% off. You're like, what? And then the next week it's 20% off, but everyone's got all the cool stuff. What they actually do is they sell everything to a third party that specializes in this. So when you go in there, it's not really even Borders owned anymore. Everything is owned by this liquidating company that specializes. And I guess they know what they're doing. I remember sometimes it's like when you go to an outlet mall, and after a while they figured out the whole outlet mall game, and it's stuff specifically manufactured by the companies to sell at outlet malls, and it's not quite the quality you would expect, and it's only found there. And it used to be, I don't know, but I guess there's some good bargains here. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if I would plunk down anything over like $20 to get a Kobo e-reader, but maybe it still works if they're still selling them. I love this sentence here. It says, "Don't forget that Borders sells, or perhaps couldn't sell, the Kobo e-reader, and while there is no word these would be liquidated cheaply, it does sound like everything must go. Might be a way to pick up a decent e-reader on the cheap." And then they're still selling them. I can't imagine they would still sell them if it's totally an abandoned thing, like web TV, which just straight up doesn't work anymore. I don't know. Do you have a web TV at home?
No, but I think I like to equate web TV with like the fax machine. It's one of those in-between technologies, or like the pager. In-between technologies that, were great for like 2 or 3 years, and then better things came along.
Well, they're still good. Like two-way radios are still cool. Two-way radios are good because a bunch of people, they're great, like cops use them, or an electric utility when the storm hits. They've got the two-way radios. The advantage is you can talk. Let's say you have 30 people in the field. You're the dispatcher. You can say something like, "We have a tree down," whatever. Who's close to it? Everyone hears it. And then if someone says, "I'll take care of it," then everyone hears that as well. So it's a neat way to have one-to-many communication, and everyone's kind of aware of what's going on.
Radios are still used in a lot of...
I think I don't know what's going on. Are you there? Emily's having a telephone moment, I fear. All right, well, let me just remind everybody, apparently including Emily, if you'd like to join us, our number is 818-688-6625. That's 818-688-6625. We'd love to have you join us. And if you are there, just speak up so I know. Okay, so...
Hi, I'm back. Sorry.
Hello. Emily took
a minute.
little break there. All right, I see you're still in your old apartment, which has awful cell reception service. Okay, so Borders is closing. Netflix, everyone's mad at again, and Rupert, James, and Rebecca are going to have a fun time before Parliament. And Facebook, you can't advertise your Google Plus page on Facebook. I wonder when they have ads if you can advertise your Facebook page. All right, so Moody's suggests that the U.S. eliminate a debt ceiling. Most countries don't have a debt ceiling. I could see from an investment standpoint, but it does seem like, on the one hand, it's the only bargaining chip the Republican House has to try to rein in spending from their perspective. And the other side of the coin is it's a way to sabotage the Obama agenda that the nation voted, 53% of whom voted to implement. So what do you think? Should we eliminate our U.S. debt ceiling? This topic's another ratings bonanza, I know.
Yeah, I think that, Moody's perspective on it is an interesting one because, they're really looking at whether or not we are, whether or not we have good credit, whether or not we're going to make good on what we say, what we owe. And the biggest worry is that, with a debt ceiling, if we reach it and don't extend it, then we're not going to be able to pay our creditors. So, that it makes us, if you miss a payment on your phone bill or you miss a payment on, anything, your credit goes down, and it's the same deal. So it makes sense in their eyes that we'd be, a much better place to lend money to if we didn't have, if we had an unlimited amount of funds to give back. So, yeah, their logic is sound from their perspective. And it's an interesting idea. I'm not sure whether I want to jump on one side or the other.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't really know what's going to happen if they breach it. I really don't know if we're truly going to default or not. I don't know if it's going to affect the little guy. I don't know if it's going to be Armageddon, as the Democrats say, or as Michelle Bachmann says, they can still pay stuff and they just cut something else. Imagine they'll cut popular Republican programs.
I heard that the biggest problem is going to be interest rates, as far as the everyday American is concerned. The interest rates are just going to skyrocket. And that really will affect people.
The few people who could actually qualify to borrow anything. We've gone from one extreme to the other, and all this money that they spent doesn't seem to have helped out the little guy, doesn't seem to have helped out the small business anywhere. It was a Wall Street thing that didn't seem to trickle down to Main Street, I can tell you that. But the good old days are gone, and now we're paying the piper, or at least the little guys are. The big guys are pretty well insulated, as they always are. But anyway, okay, so what's next? I've lost my little thing here. Here we go. The Harry Potter plagiarism case was dismissed. I guess, what was it, Willie the Wizard from 1987, right? Now I assigned...
Yep, it was
I gave Emily some homework. I assigned her a couple days ago to read Willie the Wizard, so if you could now give us a synopsis of the book and your thoughts on the plagiarism case. That would be great.
You're making me look like a horrible student, Dan.
No,
Unfortunately, it wasn't available to rent from Amazon, so I couldn't afford it. Just kidding.
Yeah, this is... I'm pouring coffee now. Yeah, I think it's... I don't know. I mean, everyone gets accused of this. The whole concept of a wizard who's a boy doesn't seem unique. I'm sure there have been other books written, and I guess this was about the big wizarding contest. This was about the Goblet of Fire book, where they were all gathered, the representatives from different schools, Hogwarts and the others, all gathered to have this big tournament, and that was one of the central themes that she was accused of plagiarizing. I don't know, but what's interesting to me is the reason the case was dismissed, or it's because she couldn't come up with cash for security. The way it works in England, if you bring a lawsuit against someone, then you have to have enough cash to pay the other side's legal bills if you lose. The loser pays concept. And this was in the news recently because there's some rich guy who cannot stand News Corp and the Murdochs, and he has offered on a number of cases to tell the people, he's gone to the barristers, the attorneys, and said that if you lose, I will cover it. I will pay the fees. So you can go ahead and sue News Corp because they hacked into your phone or whatever. But that's a whole thing. There's some big differences. There's no equivalent of a First Amendment in England, in the United Kingdom. And in this case, the loser pays thing, and you actually have to pay up front and put a bond up or some kind of cash secured so that in case you lose, you have to pay the other side's legal bills, which would certainly be a form of tort reform. What do you think about that whole concept?
It obviously worked well in this case, in this one specific Harry Potter case. I mean, the guy was given, the claim was first brought forward in 2004, so he's had 7 years to come up with the money and wasn't able to. And it's the kind of thing where if he had a legitimate case, someone like that wealthy backer who we were just mentioning and who hates the Murdochs probably would have come forward and helped him financially, so he could have made the case. And another point that they brought forward in this article is that the reason why they didn't want the case to go forward anymore was that they were specifically worried that he was doing it just to sell his book. And then it is an older book, and anyone that would want to ride Harry Potter's fame, would have done it in 2004. So, yeah, I think it's, it worked really well in this case. I'm not sure what the legal, in cases like, can you imagine if someone was, for example, suing Big Tobacco in the States and had to come up with the money to pay their legal fees, it would be pretty much impossible. But it's a completely different system, so I'm not sure that you can compare them, I guess.
I love Harry Potter. I love the Janet Rowling, the way she writes these stories. The stories are great, and I've always thought that the neat thing was that a kid could identify with Harry because he wasn't perfect. He was thrust into this position, getting these powers, but he was flawed. He wasn't a straight A student. He wasn't emotionally perfect. He would fly off the handle sometimes, but he rose to the occasion. And so it's sort of like the Big Bird character that makes all the mistakes on Sesame Street. Kids could identify in a lot of ways that Big Bird represents the child watching the show, and Harry Potter is not a superhero. He's a reluctant hero, and I think that's part of the charm, plus just the wonderful writing. And along with she's just going to go down as one of the great British authors of all time. I'm looking here, I won't hit the CNN story, but I'm looking at Drudge Report, and they're talking about the Murdoch thing, and the headline, because Drudge is pretty conservative, he says, will he come out swinging? And it's a picture of Rupert. And then under that, Obama makes joke, no one laughs. I swear. He knows how to find a a story here. And Wall Street Journal punches back, about the story we talked about. But anyway, I guess this is our last story. CNN is doing a 24-hour news network. Obviously, they're stealing my idea. They're inspired by my 1 hour a day news streaming service. What do you think? It's not really, it's only app based, and it's free, but you have to sign in with your account with Comcast or something because they don't want to upset the cable companies. So what do you think? We haven't seen it yet, but from 10,000 feet in the air, what do you think about this whole concept?
I think it's a great idea. I understand why they want to placate the cable companies, but at the same time, it's really frustrating that needs to happen. I think groups like Comcast have had, a way too much power over their market for too long, and they need to be ready to take the challenge what stuff like this could do to cable TV. So, but yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Well, the reason they're doing it is they have to protect the cable market because that's all their revenue is. Just like I've gone on here, I have I don't know, maybe 10 websites, and I have 3 print newspapers, and 99.99% of all the gross revenue comes from the newspapers, because it's just there's more money, because you can fit the whole thing is a newspaper. If you get a newspaper, my newspapers, anybody who picks it up typically would leaf through the whole paper. So anywhere from a minimum of 16 pages to 48 pages, depending on which paper and which issue. They're going to basically glance at every page. So if you have 100, like Warren County Report has over 100 ads in it every issue. So they're going to basically see all these ads. And local ads are local content. That's a great phrase from Rupert Murdoch. But if you go to a website, if you look at Drudge Report and you click and you go to a story, Obama tells joke, no one laughs, and you go to that and okay, haha, interesting story. Then you close that tab and then you go back to Drudge and go to the next thing. Then you're done there. You go to Huffington Post and blah 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 or Glenn Beck or whatever, float your boat. But you don't look at every single ad, and also they're not nearly as effective, and they don't charge as much for them. So there's no money in it. So they have to protect this stream. I think a cable company, some channels, when Fox News started, he got on by actually paying the cable companies to add the channel. You can do that. If you have a channel that isn't in demand, like Food Network, CNN, ESPN, then the cable company will just say, we're not adding your channel. And then you say, okay, well, I will pay you. And I checked in one market, and I think just to start, it was like $50,000 a year to be on just one market of like 40,000 people. So that's a lot of money. Whereas if you have a popular channel like CNN, you couldn't have a cable system without CNN or Fox News now. They get paid per subscriber, not per viewer, per subscriber. So if you go into an area, they get paid anywhere from, say, 25 cents to $1 or more, depending on the channel and how hot it is. And that's for every single home that subscribes to the cable service, regardless of whether they choose to watch CNN. So if you're getting, let's say you're in an area, I don't know, what, there are 100 million people, they're probably making $50 million or more from, and CNN is actually more profitable than Fox News because they're worldwide and because they have other business entities. They have a wire service for newspapers and such. But that's where their money is, and they don't want to cannibalize that. They don't want to make it, I mean, they're not making any money from this app. They're giving it away. They're going to have some ads on there, but there's not going to be any significant revenue coming in from that. So that's what I'm thinking. And they don't want to piss the guys off. But really, it's not so much that as they want the cable model to survive, because just like with the print model, if you have a paper that's surviving, it can actually generate revenue. There's no money in these websites. You end up spending more to develop them and host them and update them than you actually bring in. Unless you have a rare thing, like Huffington Post lost money until very recently. And then they made money last year or two, but everyone donates their content. I've written stuff for them. But something like Drudge Report, which is like one or two guys, and largely one guy, and there's some third party that sells ads, and it's just this guy posting links up there, and it gets a billion hits a year. That can make big money. He's probably well into the six figures for that website because it just gets so much traffic and it's so low cost. It's basically him in his pajamas, and he's got this incredible ability to find a story and to write a witty headline, and to choose. It's all about which stories you're going to promote, and no one seems to mind because God help you if he links to you. All he does is put the headline. He doesn't do what the aggregators are being accused of basically stealing the whole story, rewriting it, putting all the big points, so there's no need to click over to the source. But in his case, he just puts the headline, and you click to it, and you might get 50,000 hits very quickly from a story on Drudge, or more if we got like 2,000 or 3,000 hits from Google News in short order on this the Netflix story on our site. If Drudge had picked that up, it would have probably been 50 or 100,000 hits. God help us. I'd have to send you to the store to get a new server. But anyway, those are my thoughts on CNN. Any final thoughts, Ms. Williams?
No, I don't think so, except for that, I mean, I only have the most basic of cables, so I won't be able to use it. I mean, it'd be nice. I was trying to think if there was a news company that could do that without having to, of course, shoot themselves in the foot as far as the cable thing was concerned. And, the only one I could come up with was Al Jazeera. So until there's the next big independent, news network, I don't see there being anything better than what CNN's doing. So,
have you ever seen an ad on Al Jazeera?
No, I haven't. But all their funding, they pretty much have an unlimited budget.
They got some Arab guys backing them. Yeah, he started it. I think he's I want to say the Sultan of Qatar, like the head of the country, gives them pretty much an unlimited budget. So, probably got a few bucks.
They're good to go on money.
Yeah, they're good to go.
I've
never seen an ad. I bet it's amazing. It's good.
It's amazing. They have one of the world's largest continuous screens, like a TV screen that goes behind their anchors for Al Jazeera English, and it's incredible. It's all one continuous screen, and they said it was one of the largest in the world, which I believe it, because it was really big. Most television studios, when you go in, are a little less impressive than they seem on TV, and this was exactly the opposite. So, yeah,
it was interesting. I watched them, and my immediate thought was, I'm wondering if there's this evil U.S. Bias, but I don't know what. I mean, obviously, I haven't listened to their Arabic channel. I wouldn't know what they're saying, but on the English channel, it seems very BBC-ish, sort of middle of the road, just telling news and actually having real reporters in places covering things. And when something like the Libya thing heats up, because they're only in 2 cable systems in the United States, but when something like Libya blows up or the Egypt story, those guys are, I mean, they just shot through the roof. They were getting like Netflix numbers as far as from news viewers, because you can only catch them online, but it's terrific quality. I love that little orange theme graphics going on, and it's a bunch of Brits and Americans delivering news in a pretty straightforward, unbiased way, at least on their U.S. channel.
And the history of it is that when Al Jazeera decided to put on an English network, they essentially just headhunted all of the top journalists around the world that could speak English. So they have a bunch of people that come from all over the place. And, there's a lot of arguments that because their money comes from the government that so they can't be an unbiased news network. But from everything we heard from the very cantankerous British news editor that we got to talk to, everything's pretty hands-off there. But they really it's almost like a journalism think tank where they got a bunch of, really talented journalists in a room and told them to report on a region that doesn't get reported on a lot. So, I think it's a good exercise and definitely a great contribution to our news scene, I guess.
You were in the wrong place at the wrong time, Emily. You hadn't quite gotten your master's degree yet. You could have been an Al Jazeera reporter. Could have been your big
That's
thing.
Right.
Last prediction: Rupert Murdoch, James Murdoch, Rebecca Brooks. They'll be in front of Parliament. It's going to be carried on the news channels here locally. I wonder if Fox News will have it. He's going to get beat up by these guys. Half of them hate his guts. The other half are afraid to show any admiration because that's unpopular right now. Do you think he's going to be contrite, or do you think he's going to be really on the offensive, or do you think it's somewhere in between, a mixture of the two? What kind of mood do you think? You got a guy who's 80 something, right?
Mhm. You know, I think it will probably be in between. I think this will be you know, Murdoch's last hurrah. You know, he is older, and I think this will be like his big, like, you know, getting up and defending what he does, and, you know, it should be quite interesting, quite historical, I guess.
Yeah, we agree on that for sure. All right, well, I appreciate it. Emily Williams, senior political writer for the Lynchburg Times. You can always check them out. Do you have a G Plus yet? I've been trying to get you to get one.
Google Plus, yes, of course. I don't know what my address is.
Do you have a G Plus.2 redirect? You got to get one.
Okay, yep,
All you have to just go to gplus.to, and then I think you go to your page and you copy your number and put it in there, and then you can choose Emily Williams if it's not taken. I got McDermott, probably upsetting a bunch of McDermotts, but I was first, so haha. And you know, you could try. I mean, I guess you could try Emily or Emily W. and because it's still early, but then you could have your Gplus.2 name because the actual. I mean, it's 75,000 numbers. But anyway, so if you want to catch her, go to my page and then look at my friends, and then you'll see her, and then you can click to her. How about that? Like early MySpace decade. Emily Williams is a wonderful writer. We have a new issue recently, last week, of the Lynchburg Times. You can check it out at lynchburgtimes.com and catch her writing out. And she's often on the show. I guess you're on Wednesday and Thursday, or is your moving going to mess that up?
Wednesday and Thursday should be fine.
All right, so hopefully we'll have Brett tomorrow night. All right, Emily Williams, thanks so much. We appreciate you folks watching after the fact or during, listening. You can always check the show out at 818-688-6625. You can always listen to the show when it's live from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 to 6 Pacific Time, Monday through Friday. And you can check us out on Ustream. If you go to that gplus.2 McDermott page, there's links to all the different live feeds and the archives. And we'd love to have you participate. You're always welcome to give us a call or to just watch or just listen. We're on iTunes Store. Just look for McDermott Report, and you'll see my smiling face. And look on YouTube. You'll see my mugshot, which only Saddam's son's mortician could enjoy. So thanks so much. We appreciate it. And everyone have a wonderful Monday night. And we'll be watching the Murdoch hearings tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes.